you for the reminder. We would have gotten halfway through the show and I would have went, oh no. Beautiful. See that right there, kids? That's more of that vision 2020 coming in hot. All right, brother, we are recording. We are ready to rock and roll. We're ready for a surprise. So let us have it.
Sweet. So following our last conversation, we kind of did a shotgun blast. There was a whole bunch of information out there, and we dove really deep into oxidative stress and kind of what that does to the human body. And just one moment. Sorry about that. So what I wanted to do was try and break this stuff down for you guys a little bit further. And of course, we've been talking about cell phones. And let me know when you can see my screen. All right.
Dun, dun, dun.
There we go. We got you.
All right. So, and obviously, cell phones are not I'm not trying to say that cell phones are the devil. In fact, there's going to be some things that we're going to talk about in here today that are going to be really kind of intriguing as far as the thought process, but we've got this beautiful study that I've referenced. I've actually referenced a lot of studies in this presentation, and they basically say, hey, we understand that technology is necessary for the development and furthering of society. And we know that EMF radiation can cause some cellular effects, and here's what it does. But there's not enough data to show that it causes long-term health effects, which is a true statement because it hasn't been studied for long enough. We don't have studies that go over like a 20-year period because of how fast cell phones have kind of evolved. I mean, do you remember your first cell phone? You remember when they first came out and we had the Nokia with the pull-out antenna and the flip phone, and before that we had like the bricks and the bag phones, right?
Yep, I had one of those brick phones. A big old giant brick.
we had the bag phone that you put in the truck and the antenna goes on the back window, or we had the home phone that had the 20-foot cord. And I remember when we got internet at the house, and if anybody was on the internet, you couldn't use the phone. And it used to shriek at you and screech at you. And then if you wanted to research anything, man, you had 30 minutes if you were going to pull up 3 different web pages.
Yeah. I remember those days.
A long way in just a short amount of time, right?
Yeah.
So let's get into this so that we're not burning too much of your time. Is Mr. Tram going to be able to join us today?
Well, I know that he is supposed to be here, and so I guess we'll just see whether he ends up making it. It was May. I know he was out. He put up a video last night. He was out having some fun for New Year's, and so he might have tied one on. He might still be asleep. So
understandably so. All right, guys. So first and foremost, I'm going to minimize you guys down here. We need to know what this is and what it isn't before we have this conversation, okay? So if anybody has a medical concern, they should consult with their healthcare provider and seek professional medical treatment. Never disregard professional advice or delay seeking it because of something that you read on my blog, my website, on our social platforms, or any linked material. We are going to reference some studies. This is not meant to diagnose any condition, give medical advice, talk about a cure. We're not going to give psychological advice. I do spiritual counseling, but I am a minister, so I can do some of that. And so we will talk about kind kind of a spiritual component and how the body's designed, and just some revelation that I've had on that. But not medical advice. We're going to talk about a lot of big words. We're going to talk about some terms that come from the Greek and the Latin, and we're going to break it down and exactly what it means. But please do not confuse us with what it isn't. Also, I need to go ahead and have a disclaimer that enagic is very specific. Whenever we talk about Kangen water and we talk about Yukon turmeric, these are antioxidants, and we're going to be talking about the oxidative process. We're going to be talking about things that can damage cells. Understand that no products from enagic are meant to treat or cure any condition. It's not what we're trying to do. All right, so for what we're going to talk about today, I need you guys to have a basic understanding. I was going to try and get that to go back up to the top. We'll put that down here. That way you guys can see. Everything that we're going to talk about today is going to come down to two different processes with one component, and that's the autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system controls everything that happens within the body, and before you have a muscle contraction, it starts here. And it's divided into two different opposing branches. You have the sympathetic nervous system and you have the parasympathetic nervous system. This is your fight or flight, and this over here, the parasympathetic, is your rest and digest. And so if you can think about these two like an old-time set of balance scales, they kind of work in opposition to one another. And so anytime you get stressed, the body is going to respond with this. Your pupils are going to dilate, your breathing is going to get fast and shallow, the heart's going to pump blood faster, all of the oxygen in your body is going to shun away from the arms and the perimeter. It's going to go to the core, to the heart and the lungs. The gut is going to shut down, and the body's actually going to shunt blood to the heart and the lungs. And it goes away from the brain. It goes to just primal instinct. Okay, I've got to get away from this. Boom. And so that's why whenever you get really stressed out, you get cold hands, cold sweaty hands, and you get jittery and you start shaking. It's a physiological response. So on the other side, whenever you start to calm down, pupils are going to contract. Breathing is going to slow and deepen out. All that blood's going to go away from the heart and the lungs. Your gut's going to become active again. Blood's going to go out to the periphery, to the extremities. And then everything is supposed to come back to normal. But there's a lot of cellular responses that happen with this. Again, because, you know, there's a principle in neuroscience, we say nerves that fire together wire together. And so for your autonomic nervous system, whenever this is taking place, it's electrochemical. So it's an electrical impulse that causes your body to produce different chemicals endogenously, meaning inside the body. So how do antioxidants work? Well, you can see on the left-hand side, you've got your damaging free radical, okay? And there are hydroxyl ions, and then there are hydroxyl radicals. And the big difference here is that a free radical or a hydroxyl radical has an unpaired electron. And because of that, it's going to cause the cell to replicate differently. So he's got this electron that's unpaired, and so he's looking for an electron, basically is what it is. And so he's going to act kind of angry and selfish until he becomes stable over here. Okay? So what we need is a substance that is able to donate an electron to neutralize this guy from doing any damage. So your hydroxyl anions, right? Because it's diatomic hydrogen, and it's an anion because it has a negative charge. So you're flooding your body with these electrons that can go out and act as these little policemen and round up the free radicals that are doing all the damage, essentially. So we can break that down a little further. And I'm going to hammer this hard because I want to kind of set a precedence that, you know, degeneration comes from oxidative stress. It doesn't matter if we're talking about breathing and aging. If you're breathing, you're dealing with oxidative cell damage in the body just from the oxygen that you're breathing. You get oxidative stress. And it's not like you're going to stop breathing. You can go about 5 minutes without air, and I don't recommend it. So just understand that this is going to happen. We can't stop it, but we want to try and slow it down or reverse some of it if possible. Excuse me, I'm sorry. Got a catch in my throat. So over here in the purple box, you can see diatomic hydrogen, which has nice paired electrons, and that's got that OH negative. That's what we want. And then right below it, you can see the hydroxyl radical with an unpaired electron. And these two molecules act very, very differently in the body. Specifically, oxidative stress is responsible for a bunch of things. That's a lot, right? And that's not even scratching the surface. But here's, you know, skin problems, psoriasis, and then you've got cardiovascular disease, rheumatoid arthritis. I put a post out the other day with a bunch of PubMed studies linked to it, and it was talking about the pineal gland, kind of where the pineal gland is situated in the brain and how it's not protected by the blood-brain barrier, and how fluoride will cause that gland to calcify. Oxidative stress causes calcification. So whenever we look at oxidative stress causing cardiovascular disease, atherosclerosis, we're talking about plaque building up in the arteries and the walls of the heart. And so then that restricts the blood flow. You don't have as much oxygen. The heart starts to get tired, and the heart is a generator. It generates its own impulse. And so your amplitude starts to drop, and then your heartbeat gets wonky. Okay? That muscle isn't able to perfuse properly. So we have a responsibility as individuals not to put all of this stuff on our doctor, but to play detective and to be our own best advocate, to take charge of our situation and not expect somebody else to do it for us. I had to get really, really sick working as a healthcare professional before I recognized that nobody was going to do it for me, and maybe the doctors didn't understand what was going on. So it's easy to become overwhelmed when we're looking at this. Just try and keep the following in mind. We want to reduce stress on the body and ease the aging process as much as possible. So don't get all spun out if this looks like the freaking 5G apocalypse, because it. All right. So talking about neurological dysfunction in mobile phones. In the recent few years, the extensive use of mobile phones has raised the question of possible health effects of radio frequency electromagnetic fields by these phones. Now, we know that there's a difference between ionizing and non-ionizing radiation. I did not put that slide in here to show the difference in the frequency and just the magnitude and everything else, but you can look it up on Google Scholar and you can actually see the bands and where everything falls. 5G is, you know, it's on the lower end of the spectrum, but what you're going to find out in this presentation today is that doesn't really matter. So there's a whole bunch of nuggets in here, and I want to draw your attention to the second paragraph. So the effects of electromagnetic fields on biological systems have been extensively investigated over the last years, and particular attention has been given to the effects of microwave exposure on the central nervous system. A cellular phone is a low-power single-channel two-way radio. Cell phone base stations are low-power multi-channel two-way radios. This is changing with the MIMO towers, the massive input, massive output towers. And I've actually got a picture that I need to pull off my DSLR that I went to take a photo of the FCC warning sign that's at the bottom of the base station. And it says that you're not supposed to be there. It says that the radiation coming off of the tower far exceeds the FCC limits of what's considered to be safe. And just to give you guys an idea, I got close enough to take the picture and be able to read the sign on the camera. And whenever I walked away, I was sweating, my skin was bright red, and I felt like I had a really bad sunburn.
Wow.
So base stations produce radio frequency radiation, and they expose people near them to RF radiation, health effects.
Ian, can I ask you a question in that regard then? Why in the world do you go to parks where kids play and you see them in a lot of places like that? Why do they put them right where children are?
It's going to be everywhere, Sean. And there's the reason why we're talking about this is because there are countries that are blocking it. I just saw a post this morning saying that there's going to be like billions of 5G phones that are sold between 2020 and 2023. And ultimately, the verdict is still out on this one, guys, but the scientists that are looking at it have been like screaming in front of the courts saying this needs to be researched. We don't know enough about this to be putting it out like this. And
it just started here in Montana. They're turning it loose today, and I don't like it.
Here's the thing. The major cell carriers and the FCC actually passed laws so that state and local governments cannot interfere with the placement of massive input, massive output towers or small cell transmitters. So the city municipalities have zero say, and if they stand in the way of the cell companies who are trying to put towers up, then they will actually be penalized by the FCC. So the communication companies have the final say in what they do, and they don't care. It's all about dollar signs to them.
Hey, Ian, can I just interject one thing really quick into this that, you know, this is something people should really consider when it comes to what you just said about the FCC giving the cell phone companies just carte blanche over all of this to make their own decisions and do whatever the heck they want. You know, besides the fact that the federal government really has no authority to do such a thing. But when I was down at the Red Pill Expo, one of the guys that was talking specifically about 5G, he showed an internal memo from Verizon to their shareholders. And in that memo, it said, we expect to be getting a lot of lawsuits. We expect to cause a lot of, you know, this isn't verbatim, but, you know, we expect to cause a lot of damage. We expect to cause a lot of problems for people. We expect to get sued, and we expect to lose a lot of these lawsuits. And so we just wanted all of our shareholders to know this. It's like they know that this is going to cause all kinds of problems, and they don't even care. And so anyway, that I just thought I'd interject that just at that point right there, because, you know, these people know exactly what they're doing, and it's kind of crazy because literally the federal government is giving them carte blanche to wreak their havoc.
Mm-hmm. But
so
we look at what technology has done for us. Now, I'm 100% in agreement with you, and personally, I think we should stick with what we have. We know that 4G is already causing damage, but it allows us to operate in a way that we haven't been able to before. And I've got no quarrels or qualms about the fact that technology has absolutely opened up my business. I mean, I do video consultation for, you know, neurological rehabilitation with people all over the globe from my laptop.
Yeah.
I'm a one-man show, and I'm running a business that services people all over the place. And I've got 4G to thank for that. 4th generation Wi-Fi, buddy.
Yeah.
If you look at 5G and what the conspiracy theorists are saying, I'm not talking about, the tinfoil hat wearing people that just don't know what they're talking about. I'm talking about the people that have some military experience that say, oh yeah, we use this as crowd control and we gave these people cancer. Or the people with the British military that were told by the military that their clothing would protect them from the radiation while they're dropping H-bombs out in the islands. Oh yeah, just cover your eyes and watch the blast. And they're watching the bones light up in their hands. And then years later, they have cancer because they had improper protective clothing and should not have been there in the first place.
Right. Yeah.
So did you see my post the other day about the Earth being a battery?
Yep.
So we've got this battery and we're electrical beings, right? And there's this principle of grounding that if you walk around barefoot on the ground, you can recharge your batteries, your nervous system. And we look at how storms come through. And a storm is an exchange of energy from the ground and the atmosphere. What are we going to do to the planet if we're going to be putting up all of these? I mean, literally every 300 feet across the globe, they're putting up a cell tower, and then we've got satellites that are going to hit all the spots where they can't put up cell towers. And Elon Musk and different people have talked about just putting a grid of 5G radiation around the planet. But, if there is global warming, my gosh, we got to find a way to reverse that, but we're still going to do this. It just doesn't make sense to me. So I'm going off on a rabbit trail. This is important. I want to get to. All right. So case reports of peripheral neurological effects of radio frequency radiation describe mainly disturbances of noxious sensation, dysesthesia. We're going to break this one down, okay? Remember, most of our medical terms, if not all of our medical terms, come from the Latin and the Greek because they were the pioneers of what we know today as Western medicine. Pharmacy comes from the Greek word pharmakeia and actually means witchcraft and sorcery. And I've got some books out there that are really interesting if you guys want to go through the information where I actually break down the word and the definitions and the Strong's Concordance, and then pull some information from medical history, and we draw a comparison and then talk about, one of them talks about fetal bovine serum, which goes in vaccines, and it's harvested from the calf while the heart is still beating. So Ecclesiastes in my Bible says that there's nothing new under the sun. Chew on that for a minute. All right. So dysesthesia comes from the Greek word dys, meaning not normal, and esthesis, which means sensation, abnormal sensation. It's defined as an unpleasant, abnormal sense of touch, often presents as pain, but may also present as inappropriate, but not discomforting sensation. 9 times out of 10, it's pain, because if you listen to me for any length of time, right? Pain is a neurological response to a perceived threat. Pain is your brain trying to correct your behavior. That's like 100% of what we do at Nuclear. All right. So, cases have been associated with other RFR sources as well as mobile phone technologies. My wife and I don't have a microwave in our house. It's a personal choice that we have made, but we don't microwave food. I have a toaster oven at the office. We just don't do it. Aside from, it taking a while for the radiation to dissipate, you're actually restructuring the molecules whenever you do that, and you're zapping the nutrients right out of it. So if you're doing microwave dinners, just stop it. Cases of revision after exposure to much of the frequency range, which is in the megahertz to the gigahertz, and in some of the symptoms are transitory, transient, right? They go away after time, but they can be lasting in other people. And I'm seeing more and more out of this. You know, we talk about the trigger point pathology, and one of the main instances of trigger points developing in the body is because of neurological interference and ischemia in the muscle tissue. So people don't have enough oxygen, and they get a sarcomere in the muscle that clamps down because it's irritated where that muscle is innervated, and it shuts that muscle down. And then I have people who start with one, and then they develop clusters of these trigger points in the muscle, and it's because that area has no oxygen and it becomes acidic, right? Because it's positively charged. Depolarization, repolarization. It comes down to that electrical activity. So after high intensity exposures, like with the myelotransmitters, your nerves could be grossly injured. All right, so this is a PubMed study down here, guys. Study goes on to say low intensity exposures resulted in dysesthesia. Ordinary nerve conduction studies, if you've ever had an EMG, they check for the function of the nerves, but you can have damage, like with CRPS type 1, does not show up on an EMG. In fact, the diagnostic criteria for differentiating between CRPS type 1, sorry for everybody who doesn't know what CRPS is, complex regional pain syndrome, formerly known as reflex sympathetic dystrophy. So you're just burning alive 24 hours a day, feeling like you're being ripped limb from limb. And the difference between type 1 and type 2 on a diagnosis is whether or not you have any abnormalities on an EMG. But your hands and feet can still be swelling like grapefruits and turning purple and gray or bright red. You can have 10 degrees temperature from the right hand to the left hand and have no abnormal anything on an EMG. So just because we can't see it on a test doesn't mean that it's not there. It's just like people who have pain that doesn't show up on an MRI or an X-ray. So it's concluded from this study that mobile phones can cause peripheral neurophysiologic changes in some persons. Okay, so the study said that changes can happen. What kind of changes? Well, we know that they can cause headache. We know that they can interfere with the circadian rhythm, cause sleep disturbance. We've done some research now to know that blue light isn't necessarily good for us. Artificial light, everybody's putting fluorescents and LEDs and all of these CFL bulbs in their home because they're cheaper to run and it saves you money over time. The LEDs are horrible. CFLs aren't as bad as those. But artificial light is not good. So before you go to bed, it's a good idea to be dimming down the light in the house as the sun starts to go down. And then if you're going to use some light sources, use some dimmer light sources. That way your body can start producing melatonin and get ready for your sleep cycle. That way you can prepare yourself for REM sleep, because as we know, if you're not sleeping and you're not dreaming, you're not recharging and healing. So more seriously, I don't know if you guys saw this, but significant increases in the frequency of seizures in epileptic children. There is a positive correlation between cell phone use and brain tumors, and there is a positive correlation between cell phone use and higher blood pressure. Which, again, if we're looking at this from an allostatic model rather than a homeostatic model, homeostasis says that everything wants to be baseline, pulse wants to be 60 beats per minute at all time, blood pressure wants to be 120/80 at all time, and so we're always trying to get back to that. Allostasis basically says there is a stimulus, you're going to adapt. So it is concluded, Again, the study is at the bottom of the page. This is not me saying this. Is concluded that radio frequency radiation from mobile phones can cause peripheral neurophysiological changes in some persons. The effects occur at exposure levels below the present safety levels for RFR. And guys, it's well below. Like, if we're talking about their chart is this tall, and they're saying this is the PEL, the permissible exposure limit at the top, it should actually be down here.
Wow.
So we're going to draw a conclusion here based on dysesthesia and multiple sclerosis, because we wanted to talk about some of the things that people can experience. So people with MS have these sensations in different ways, and it usually feels like burning, electrical shock-like sensations, tightening in the muscles, aching, prickling, pins and needles, tingling, really anything of that sort. And it can vary, but just it's pain. Another classic example, burning, hot feet. Sensation tends to flare at night or after exercise. The opposite would be ice cold feet. That's also possible. Manifests as pain in something that should not hurt at all, such as light touch or a caress. That's called allodynia. And with CRPS, that's hell. Like, you have to change your entire wardrobe. You can't wear certain kinds of clothes. You have to stop wearing jewelry, watches, rings. I had to change my bed sheets for a number of years because I couldn't deal with the fabric rubbing on my skin. It was too painful. Felt like somebody was just pulling my skin off with a cheese grater. And again, nerve damage can produce pain, even if there are no documented changes on an EMG or visible injury. And if you guys want to, I can send this to you. You can pull these studies. All right, so what we have here is a graph that is showing a normal pain response to a stimulus and a heightened pain response, which is your hyperalgesia. Allodynia is on the bottom of that, light touch, okay? And it's central pain sensitization, and that can be perpetuated through a something that we like to refer to as sympathetically maintained pain. So, sorry, my dog's drinking some water over here. So sympathetically maintained pain, if you get stressed out, your pain level increases, your pain stimulus increases. And it's because the body deals with stress and injury in the same way. Pain does not necessarily mean injury. In fact, the two are very loosely correlated. So pain is just that. It's pain. It's a neurological signal from the brain, always originates in the brain, and the brain is perceiving that something is going wonky in the body. And so wherever that issue is taking place, and it could be anything. It could be a broken arm, or it could be a nerve that just got damaged. And the brain is going to start sending signals to call your attention to that area. Now, when that happens consistently, you're familiar with the term neuroplasticity, right?
I can't say I am familiar with that.
So
now I am.
Brain exercises, brain games to, retrain your intelligence, to learn new neural patterns. Neuroplasticity is the ability for somebody to be able to create a new neural pathway. So if you study something and you get really smart at talking about a specific topic, that's what you're doing. You're exercising neuroplasticity.
Yeah.
Pain. Yeah. Pain is the same way. So have you ever heard somebody say, I carry my stress on my shoulders?
I have heard that, yeah.
Okay, that's because they've trained a pattern, sit a certain way, move a certain way, do a certain job, repetitive motions, and then they sleep in a certain bed, they have their spot on the couch or their recliner, and they entrain this pattern, and before you know it, they're just walking around like this and wondering why their shoulders hurt. But your sympathetic nervous system, there's a concept called muscle batteries, and it talks about the innervation of different muscles in the body. Your sympathetic, your fight or flight, is up here in the pecs and up here in the upper traps, and that's because universal startle reflex. When we get stressed out, we tighten up. Okay, so what can we learn from all of this? Abnormal sensations are a characteristic of dysesthesia caused by damage to the nerves in the brain, the spinal cord. That's an MS, okay? Again, this is an example. A normal transmission of messages to and from the brain are impaired by the disease or dysfunction, making it difficult for the brain to interpret the signals it's receiving. As such, sensations are not a sign of damage to the tissues where they are being felt, but due to the damage in the nerves that communicate with the brain about what's happening in a particular part of the body. If you get anything from this slide, take that away. Get it? Got it? Good. Again, when we put a fancy name on things, it requires a diagnosis by a physician. So don't take this as medical advice. It's presented as educational and informational only. But we are talking about nerve pain. This should not be confused with a loss of sensation or a distorted sensation, such as when a limb falls asleep. We are talking about pain. If we go to PubMed and we research neuropathic pain, we'll find that neuropathic pain is caused by a lesion or a disease of the somatosensory nervous system. You don't need to know everything that's happening there or the different types of nerve fibers, but you need to know imbalances between excitatory and inhibitory signaling, alterations in ion channels. That's very, very important, which is why it's highlighted and underlined, and variability in the way that pain messages are modulated in the central nervous system have all been implicated in neuropathic pain. So let's take this one step further. JJ.
Yeah.
Read that for me.
Imbalances between excitatory and inhibitory somatosensory signaling, alterations in ion channels, and variability in the way that pain messages are modulated in the central nervous system all have been implicated in neuropathic pain.
So that is a really fancy way of saying if you have the wrong signal or you have the wrong voltage, you're going to have pain. Something's going wrong, so you're going to have an error program that's going to run that is going to warn you that something is wonky.
I love it. They always got to come up with complicated ways to say things, don't they?
Well, but who's going to read that and go, oh, hey, maybe my cell phone is a bad thing and maybe I shouldn't be holding this thing up to my head all day.
Yeah.
Very
good point.
Again, guys, there is a publication on the bottom of the page. I did create the slide, but I'm citing my sources. Possible effects of radio frequency electromagnetic field exposure on the central nervous system. So now we're into our study, okay? Technological advances of mankind through the development of electrical and communication technologies have resulted in exposure to artificial electromagnetic fields. Technological growth is expected to continue. As such, the amount of EMF exposure will continue to increase steadily. In particular, the use time of smartphones that have become necessary for modern people is steadily increasing. Social concerns and interest in the impact on the cranial nervous system are increased when considering the area where the mobile phone is used. However, before discussing possible effects of radiofrequency electromagnetic field on the human body, several factors must be investigated about the influence of EMF at the level of research using in vitro on animal models. Scientific studies on the mechanism of biological effects are also required. So again, they're saying, hey, it's kind of like with cannabis. They're saying, yeah, we know it should be good for you, but there's insufficient data, right? Even though they hold patents on the plant. And those expired, by the way, but that's a different conversation for a different day. So it's been found that EMF can induce changes in the central nervous system nerve cells, including neuronal cell apoptosis. This is programmed cell death. Changes in the function of the nerve myelin, which is an insulated sheath that protects the nerve, and changes in ion channels. Furthermore, this is the nugget, RF EMF act as a stress source, oxidative stress. And then the study goes on to say the possible biological effects of RF EMF exposure have not yet been proven. There are insufficient data on the biological hazards to provide a clear answer to the possible health risks. And again, they're talking about over a long period of time. Therefore, it's necessary to study the biological responses in consideration of the comprehensive exposure with regard to the use of various devices in individuals. And so we're going to go into that in more detail. But again, we know it causes damage to the cells. We don't know what the effects of this are going to be for your children or your grandchildren. So we're going to go ahead and study it and see what the results are. It's overall, that's nothing malicious, I would say. If anything, they're recognizing a problem that they're trying to fix. It's kind of like the Industrial Revolution. You know, we started producing a lot of food industrially, and you fix one problem, you create 10 more, and then you have to find solutions. It's kind of like, are you throwing one pebble into the water, or are you throwing a handful?
Yeah.
But that's the nugget, okay? EMF acts as a stress source in living creatures, and it can induce changes in the central nervous system, nerve cells, including abnormal programmed cell death in neural cells, and changes in the function of the myelin, the protective sheath around the nerves, and the voltage gate ion channels. So, oxidative stress. Definitions. Medical definition of oxidative stress is physiological stress on the body that's caused by the cumulative damage done by free radicals inadequately neutralized by antioxidants, and that is held to be associated with aging. So oxidative stress is something that we all encounter. It's physiological stress, contributes to and is the aging process. Your nail is rusting, and it is caused by cumulative damage that's done by free radicals or hydroxyl radicals that are not being neutralized within the body. Okay? Yeah, and this is public information. You just have to know where to look. Apart from several other environmental or genetic factors, oxidative stress is leading to free radical attack on neural cells and contributes to a calamitous role on neurodegeneration. So when we talk about neurodegeneration, we're talking about like the cumulative breakdown of the nervous system that leads to things like Alzheimer's disease, Parkinson's disease, anything that, you know, you would get a diagnosis for. Okay. And again, we're not looking to diagnose. We're just going to talk about some of this stuff today, and understand if they're throwing a fancy label on something, it's because things are breaking down and they're not working properly. So you have a toxicity of free radicals that contributes to proteins and DNA becoming injured, inflammation and tissue damage, and the subsequent cellular apoptosis that comes from that. So antioxidants are being looked at as a persuasive therapeutic agent against neuronal loss, and they have the capacity to combat free radicals by neutralizing them. You need an electron donor, buddy. And it's great because water, you know, if you're properly hydrated, you're 75% water. Water is a medium for everything that happens in the body, and water is the best conductor of electricity on the planet. If you ever walk into like a senior care facility, an assisted living facility, and you know that ammonia smell, smells like a litter box, right? Yeah. And that's from the tissue breaking down, and it releases ammonia as a result. Most people don't know that. It's dehydration. Diet is a major source of antioxidants as well as medicinal herbs. Okay, we can do a lot of things, but two of the biggest components are your water, and there's actually some studies that we've just posted on about turmeric being an excellent antioxidant. Turmeric is amazing, and it decalcifies the pineal gland. So this second to last sentence, antioxidants have a wide scope to sequester metal ions involved in neuronal plaque formation to prevent oxidative stress. Neuronal plaque formation. Okay.
So metal ions, when you say that right there, Ian, what my brain cell is thinking is that, you know, a lot of the metals that are being sprayed on us and put in our foods and water and, you know, whatever. I mean, all these different things like mercury and lead and whatever other metals you can think of. So what that's saying right there is that by having proper antioxidants, it helps neutralize those metals that are being brought in, you know, through environmental factors or dietary factors or whatever. By having good antioxidant protection, it's actually protecting against those metals, correct?
So you need to be able to detoxify and flush your body. And yeah, you've got to be able to absorb some of that heavy metal. Dr. John Bergman actually does he does his True Health Tuesdays, and the truth shall set you free. He's a great guy, super smart. And he talks about different clays and different things that you can do to help detox your body. But yeah, you hit the nail on the head. And aluminum actually has, I've talked to medical professionals that say that they're more concerned about mercury than aluminum, and I don't disagree, but the correlation between aluminum and Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and things like that, from my perch where I'm sitting, we're going to learn a lot over the next 15 years as far as what the actual impact of this really is. Again, guys, this is public information. All this stuff has been taken from PubMed, Google Scholar, ResearchGate. I don't pull anything from WebMD. All right, so basic comprehension, what we just read, the possible biological effects of radio frequency EMF exposure have not yet been proven. There's insufficient data. Therefore, let's study it. So we've got studies showing possible effects of EMF on the central nervous system. First page of the study that's talking about it. Hey, biological effects. We know they're there, so let's see what a summary of these effects is. In the standardized health risk assessment process, the World Health Organization task group of scientific experts concluded that there are no substantial health risks related to extra low frequency EMFs at levels generally encountered by members of the public. However, it has been hypothesized that a variety of neurological influences may arise as a result of EMF exposure due to the location of the cellular phone and the proximity of the cranial nervous system. Therefore, a lot of concern is focused on carcinogenesis of the cranial nervous system, so cancers of the brain. Again, we've got different things like the blood-brain barrier, and that doesn't, you know, we can break that down and say it does or doesn't play a part, but just the fact that, number one, we're contradicting ourselves. Generally safe. However, there may be some changes. And then there's a study, there's actually a lot of studies that claim that using cell phone for more than an hour a day for a period of 10 years could increase your risk of brain tumors. There are studies showing that people who have used cell phones have an increase of brain tumors. This specific study was malignant gliomas with acoustic neuromas, so they already had an abnormality there, but using the cell phone increased their correlation. There's a lot of studies that have been done.
Wow.
So EMF can induce changes in the central nervous system, nerve cells, and peripheral nerve cells. It can induce abnormal neural cell apoptosis, again, programmed cell death. So when you've got mass amounts of cells that are just dying off, it can change the function of the protective sheathing around the nerves. Okay, the myelin sheath, which is like your insulation around your extension cord, if you think about the body as an electrical being. So your house is wired with copper wire that has insulation around the copper wire for conduction. Your body is wired the same way, and then signals jump across the synapse at the end of the nerve dendrite. And so those nerves arc from one to the other, and then you've got this long bundle that's covered in myelin fiber. If that myelin starts to break down, then you get shorts in your wiring and you don't get good signal. Further down on the line in the cells, in the mitochondria, you've got this voltage gate theory talking about, you know, if we were talking about the heart, we could talk about the heart as a sodium-potassium pump. Sodium and potassium and ATP are exchanging across the cell wall, and those cells are constantly going from a positive to a negative charge. And as a result, that electrical activity of positive, negative, polarization, depolarization, right? That's what gives you the heartbeat. And so that's priming your pump. When you encounter oxidative stress, things start to function in a way that they're not supposed to. And so that's the basis of what we're talking about. So there's this new field, relatively new field, called epigenetics. And we all know about genes, and that, you know, if you do your family tree and you're looking at what your grandparents had and your parents had to see what your blood type is or what your instance of getting a neurodegenerative condition is, you know, that's kind of given some people foresight about whether or not they're going to be prone to developing things later in life. That's genetics, right? Epigenetics is the study of changes in organisms caused by modification of gene expression rather than alteration of the genetic code itself. So you modify how the gene is expressed within the body, and then you have abnormalities that come from that. And again, we've talked about like genetically modified food and genetically modified honey and all this stuff. Oh yeah, it's safe. We're just changing the genes. Well, depends on who you ask, I guess. So EMF exposure has been reported to cause chromosomal instability, alteration of gene expression, and gene mutations. And most people don't realize, I had never even heard of the MTHFR gene, methylene tetrahydrofolate reductase, I think. MTHFR. So it's a zipper protein. I never had any reason to study this whenever I was a paramedic, but whenever I started looking at CRPS, I had to look deeper at how things were starting to get messed up. And one of the things that goes along with a lot of autoimmune conditions, and specifically CRPS, is an MTHFR gene mutation.
One thing I'd like to point out real quick, just to give everybody a little heads up on what you just talked about right there. And what I'll do, you guys, is I'll put the link to this video in the comments so that you guys can go watch this video when you get a chance. But it pretty much verifies what Ian's talking about right here, because it's a short video where they take people and they test their blood. They pull their blood, they put it under the microscope, and you can see their blood, and it's all normal. They're all round. They're all about the same. They're all kind of moving around and everything. And then they go and have them stand next to a smart meter for 2 minutes. And then they go and do the same thing. They take their blood again, and they put it under the microscope. And now you can literally see those mutations. You can see all of these cells, these blood cells that are no longer round. They're all discombobulated and blowing up. They're all funky shaped and looking totally different. And I would classify that. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe not, but it seems to me that what we're seeing right there is we're seeing that mutation that slide was just talking about. The mutation of those the cells. And it seems pretty obvious to me, but
to get technical on that, that would actually be more of an apoptotic cell death that is causing things to become abnormal, and then the blood cells are bursting, and so they're losing their integrity. You've got inflammation. Basically what's going on, you've got heat and inflammation, this RF that's changing things, and so your blood vessels are going to constrict, blood is going to get thick and viscous, and then the cells are changing shape, and they're bursting, right? And so there's medical terms that we could break that down to, but we don't have to, because what's happening is they're dying abnormally. They're rupturing. And so exactly, it affects your circulation. And we know that if you have affected circulation, and people with a condition that I'm thinking about, they eat a lot of sugar in their life, and then they go to the doctor and they're diagnosed with a condition that their body is not able to properly produce insulin and metabolize glucose, because they've beaten that system up to the point that it finally broke, right? The circulatory system is no different. The nervous system is no different. If you're hard on your machine, stuff's going to break down. I am a walking, living example of that. And so that's why I'm out here screaming from the rooftops that people should probably be looking at this, and regardless of whether or not you believe the hype about the water, you should probably be drinking it.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, Ian, I want a statement just came across the live feed from our dear angel, Marilyn Anquetil, and she says that she carries the C677T mutation. Does that mean anything to you? Do you understand what she's talking about there?
Not off the top of my head, but I may have it. Yeah. Because I know it has to do with MTHFR. I believe that has to do with CRPS. Anyway, so rather than splitting those hairs, what's her question?
Oh, she just said she doesn't have a question. It's just a statement. She says that she carries the C677T mutation.
Okay.
What that means to me, nothing. I don't know. I don't get it. But I was wondering if it meant anything to you, that there might be anything you could say about that.
Marilyn, do you have CRPS? I know I've got her as a friend on Facebook. That may be what she's saying, JJ, is that she's got CRPS and she's got an MTHFR mutation.
As far as I know, I know Marilyn pretty well, and I don't think she's got, at least if she does, I don't think it's anything like what you had, because she's never described anything as, you know, the way that you described your CRPS. And I'm not sure whether there's different levels of CRPS or not, or anything like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I just saw that comment of hers, and I thought I'd bring it up real quick just in case there was something that you could expand upon that or not. And
it's, you know, why do I even bring it up? And again, I'm not gonna go down the rabbit hole of oh, you've got this gene mutation, you need to do this, because that's not what this is about. That's not what we're trying to do, and we know that we could get in a lot of trouble by doing that. But I will say these things are becoming more and more common, and people definitely need to be aware of how the body will malfunction.
Now, she did reply back, by the way. She did reply back, yes.
Okay.
So apparently she does have CRPS in at some level. And
I mean, she's probably, we could go a lot of ways with that. There's a lot of people who have CRPS that have had whiplash style injuries, tailbone style injuries. I broke my pelvis, had an open book fracture of my pelvis whenever I was 5 years old. I got run over, and then had a really hard life after that. And everything, you know, I'm always looking at, why did I get this when somebody else didn't? And the biggest thing that I could say, because I've looked at injury, I've looked at diet, I believe it's cumulative, but my lifestyle was that of somebody, I would go to work for days at a time, I would sleep when I could, and for like 24, 48, 72 hours, I would get a tone. So I would get a loud screeching beep across the radio that would wake me up, and I had 60 seconds to be out the door to help somebody who was dying and take them to the hospital. And then I would sit in the front seat of the ambulance like this on a tough book while my partner drove, and go back to the station and sleep for 15, 20 minutes, hour, 2 hours, boom, do it all over again. I did that for years and years. And I believe that the totality of the lifestyle that we are living and the demand that is being put on our nervous systems is having a cumulative effect that most people don't realize. And it comes down to stress.
wow. This is fascinating stuff, my brother.
I got a couple more slides for you guys here. This will be good, I promise. I put one of these in just for you, JJ.
This is all fantastic as far as I'm concerned, brother. I love this, man.
So, what can be done? Well, we already know what the Clinton administration did. Sorry, I couldn't resist. Recognize the addiction. Okay. Recognize the addiction. Understand that holding that thing in your hand is going to change the way that your blood vessels flow. It's going to heat up tissues. It's going to cause changes in the nervous system. which when we're talking about areas of the body, it's on such a small level and it needs to work so perfectly. And we already know, we've looked at the studies that are saying, hey, this can cause cellular changes. This can cause changes in the way that your nerves are firing. So limit your time on the electronic devices, and for the love of God, don't give them to your kids. Like, that is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Every child has a tablet or a cell phone. It's idiotic and it's irresponsible. So Kangen Wada, electrolyzed reduced water. If you guys want to know about this, don't Google what people are saying about the company. It's a direct selling company. You can see the gold seal down here from the Water Quality Association. They've got certificates from the Direct Selling Association. It's different than an MLM company because it's not a pyramid scheme, rather, sorry. You've got levels over, you've got levels up, and the compensation plan is patented, not MLM DSA. There is a big difference. What does the technology do? It's a water ionizer. So we take tap water and it goes through our carbon filter and removes the sediment, the rust, the lead, the chlorine, the bacteria, all of that nasty stuff that we don't want to drink. And then it goes into an electrolysis chamber, which has a series of anodes and cathodes. Your anodes are your positively charged plates and your cathodes are your negatively charged plates. And whenever we hit it with electricity and these molecules bounce back and forth through here, there's a restructuring that takes place, and the alkaline water is separated from the acidic water. So the negatively charged water is separated from the positively charged water. I hate hearing all of these people who say, oh, well, you can't affect your blood pH, so that technology is absolutely useless because you're not going to change the pH in the stomach and you're not going to change the pH in the blood. Well, you guys are not looking at what's happening electrically.
Yeah.
And what is happening electrically? Our conversation about fluoride. Anybody?
Oh, Ian, here's my sweetie. She's getting ready to go to work. Love you, honey. I know you got up and moved your car last night.
I know, but I have just my spare keys.
All right. Love you, honey. Have a great day. Sorry about that, Ian. Got to say goodbye to my sweetheart.
Family comes first.
Love you, honey. Okay, sorry about that. Sorry to interrupt you in the middle of that awesome sauce. So
it's all good, man. So this is what's actually going on inside your Kangen. And what we're really going for is this OH negative, because these are your electrons in your Kangen water that's going to go through and neutralize this stuff. And you'll notice this one is chlorine. This is the scientific element symbol for chlorine. And the interesting thing is that fluoride is also a negative charge. So it's going to be drawn towards the anode and it's going to go down your waste tube, which is why I tell people not to drink the wastewater from making common water.
Yep. Hey, I got a question for you, Ian. There is one particular button on the machine where you hit the beauty water.
Mm-hmm.
And when you hit that beauty water, you get a 6.0 pH out the top, and you get a 8.0 pH out the bottom. Mm-hmm. Is that the one area where you would be safe to drink the water coming out the bottom tube, the 8.0 pH water? Or because from what I understand, it reverses the polarity on the plates when you hit that beauty water setting. And so I know that there's people that we have told in the past that even the 8.5 water is too strong for them. Mm-hmm. and in their beginning process. And so we recommended to them that they hit the beauty water setting and drink the 8.0 water. Now, does that reverse the whole situation now, so that the chlorine and the fluoride and that is going out the top hose now when you're hitting the beauty water setting?
That would make sense to me. I wish Sam Tran was on the line. I can't give you a definitive answer as far as what's going on with the settings because I haven't done research into that setting on the machine, but it would make sense if we're just, the old adage, keep it simple, stupid. I was always taught to work basic to advanced, so the easiest explanation is usually the right one. And yeah, if you're going for a 6.0, then in order to get that pH, it's going to have to reverse the flow, just based off of how the machine works. Now, what I would like to see, there's a lot of things that come into play in this argument, and that's like your source water filtering and everything else, what you're actually starting with, and then that's comes back to your water quality report and what are you really trying to get out. But yeah, that's a really good question, and I believe so.
Well, one thing I do love about this whole discussion and, learning all of this is because, first off, we're learning that there's an issue, and it doesn't really do much good to point out problems to people without offering solutions. And so, I think that's what you were starting to get into here when I interrupted the discussion. But, the point of the matter is if we don't have a solution to the problem, then why the heck even point the dang problem out? You're better off not even knowing about it if there's nothing you can do about it. But one of my goals with all of this is not only to point out the insidious nature of what's being perpetrated against us, again, that we don't even know about, is that once we do know about it, what are we going to do about it? And how do we protect ourselves? And the first part of the thing was talking about oxidative stress. It would just make sense that the best way to protect yourself against that oxidative stress is with the most powerful antioxidant there is on the planet. Do I have that right?
It's simple math, man. Plus signs and minus signs.
So these issues that we have going on, you were talking about the MS and the, these neurological disorders, because it seems to me what I'm getting out of this is that literally all of our issues, whatever kind of health issue a person may have, it all starts in their nervous system.
Well, and I don't want to start taking diagnoses and, breaking down pathophysiologies and all that stuff today. But one thing that we always tell people is that the nervous system is king and the nervous system is key. And before you have something that takes place in your body, there is a neurological impulse that perpetuates it. So there is an electrical signal that is sent, and then there's a cascade of events based on that electrical signal. And we've gone pretty deep with this in the past, JJ, and there's, that could be a thought. That could be a thought that incites fear, that causes you to feel uncomfortable and causes your body to go into a sympathetic state where you're starting to get panicked and then getting all spun up thinking about this thought. And it could be, she's not answering her phone. I wonder if she got in a car wreck. And you're going to increase the oxidative stress on your body, exponentially, just off of thought. So it begs the question, if somebody has pain, somebody has a condition, somebody has dysfunction within their body, why don't we put more emphasis on our thoughts and our behaviors to help correct that? Because if you give somebody a Band-Aid to cover the bleeding that's taking place there, then they're no longer bleeding all over everybody, right? The symptom is taken care of, but it doesn't change the fact that they're still injured.
Right.
And tissues heal, but the nervous system remembers. So if you're not correcting the abnormal signals in the neurology, you're not fixing the problem.
Man, this is fascinating. You know, that old saying, it makes me think of that old saying that I've heard a gazillion times in my life, and that is that thoughts are things.
Thoughts are powerful.
I was telling my boys yesterday, the 7th grade boys I'm coaching, thoughts manifest behaviors and behaviors manifest actions. And actions manifest habits. You know, what are you working on? What are your habits? You know, so I get it. I mean, and it's really, I could be depressed as hell, and I just got to pray on it. I just got to step away from it, and I've got to find ways to just change direction of my thinking. Be it music, you know, whatever, scripture, you know, something, just to get my mind off it, looking at flowers, just walking around watering my plants. I use all that to rewire my thoughts when I'm stressed out or dealing with something, you know.
Exactly. Thoughts are electrical impulses within the brain, okay, because you've got all these neurons that are firing, right?
Yeah.
You have an elevated, or we'll say a coherent thought, okay, that's combined with an elevated emotion that is tied to an experience, and then the mind takes a snapshot, and that's called a memory. And the stronger the emotional tie that you have to that thought and that experience, the more vivid the memory. Now, your thoughts and your behaviors surrounding that experience and that memory are going to shape how you behave and how you interact with people, and specifically how you interact with your environment when you're encountered with that situation again. And so when you are, the body is going to look back in the catalog of memory banks and say, there it is, run away. And that is how your personality is shaped, and your personality shapes your personal reality. Because thoughts, feelings, and actions affect how we interact with the people and the things around us. That determines what kind of a person we're going to be.
Yeah. You know, that's amazing. I think that's why, I think you just summed up, or this little part of our discussion this morning has summed up what's so powerful about the Enagic family and Kong and Water, you know, the Kong family. I had a lady tell me the other day that she ended up going and buying a used machine, where I was, of course, hoping that she was going to get a machine from me. She got looks like she got a really screaming deal on a used machine. And I just told her, hey, congratulations. That's awesome. You know, and anything I can do to help you, anything you need, don't hesitate to reach out, you know, any way, shape or form that I can help you, you just let me know. And, you know, I told her all the pros and cons of getting a used machine, whatever, you know, and she ended the conversation with, it's just truly amazing how positive you are. I really appreciate it. And I told her, hey, you know, it's hard not to be positive when you're surrounded by positivity. And that's the thing that, you know, the whole change your water, change your life. It's not just a saying. It's an absolutely demonstrable fact. And I'm a living proof of it. Because it's truly amazing how much it's changed my life by being around people like you, being around people like Sean, being around people like Coach Menard and Coach Mabry and Sam Tran and Dan Edlund and on and on and on and on and on. All these people and just such incredible positive influences in my life. It's like if you want to change your thoughts, you gotta surround yourself with positive people. If you're always running around with negative people, guess what? You're going to be negative, right?
Exactly. Because those energies that people carry, you know, we share experiences. So we share energies, because you have a polarity in your nervous system, and you have an aura, which is the energy that is around your body in your immediate metron, or your sphere of influence, and that can be actually photographed with a Carillion camera, Carillion photography. You can photograph somebody's aura. So we know that that charge is there. If you've ever, a similar experience would be like if you've ever built up static and shocked somebody. Usually whenever I touch people, I discharge energy. So my wife.
The Voltinator, they don't call you the Voltinator for nothing.
But
I just think it's ironic that the negative charge of this water has contributed to such a positive charge of our watering.
Well, but I want to touch on something because you really just highlighted a huge point that I wanted to comment on, and I'm glad she got a machine, JJ. I'm really glad that she's drinking the water. But definitely as she progresses and she sees changes, I hope that she'll look at Enagic, at the way that they have structured this thing, and understand that there's benefits that you get with buying a new machine that you just don't get from a second-hander. And knowing what I know now and how we use this water, I'm so glad that I bought my factory direct.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's another part of the whole thing about this company. Hopefully we can continue as the year of perfect vision 2020 moves along. We can help people to see better, to see the benefits of making the investment. I have another friend that just messaged me yesterday that she's going to be getting her machine, and she needs to understand just all of the positive aspects that there are with this company, and how Mr. Oshiro's vision is the three components of health, the spiritual health, the physical health, and the financial health. You really, in this day and age, really you need all three of them. Even your financial health is important nowadays because of the Federal Reserve mechanism. We need to make money. We really do, I mean, you want to be able to live, you want to be able to get along, it's like money isn't the most important thing to anybody that's got a heart and a soul, but it's most definitely necessary. You got to have it. And so, yeah, those three components and all the positivity and the people that we get around and just this whole system of being able to communicate like we are today. I'm here in Utardia. You guys are in Montana and Arkansas, and it's just truly amazing. We got people online that are watching this thing that are from all over the world, and it's just, then we're going to be able to turn around, and this is being recorded. We're going to be able to share it out to people all over the place, and there's just no end to the effects that we can have, because if we can change people's thoughts, then we can change people's things. Mm-hmm. And it's just fascinating to me to be hearing all of this stuff. And I know that one of my goals I'm going to write down in my goal sheet is that I need to change my thoughts. I need to be very, very conscious of my thoughts and the things that I put out there. I really need to try hard to do that. And I've got to do some reprogramming because of, I read World Without Cancer 27 years ago, and I've got a different thought process than most people do, just because of what I learned, and now I've got to figure out how to kind of reprogram what I do. And it helps a lot having people like you, Ian, and like you, Sean, to kind of keep me in check, let me know when I'm getting a little out of hand.
Sideways.
Yeah.
Hey, look, I just want to be able to acknowledge, what I'm dealing with. When my son Keegan was 12, I sent him to his mom's for Christmas. He called me upset as it comes after 4 days of not knowing him not showing up at the airport, no phone call, no cell phone at the time. He never came back. Then I go back to 2017 where this whole scene with my kids, the mom kept them down there, never came back, put up this big barrier of the system for me to stay. Today, I'm supposed to go get my son. I have that anxiety. I have that thought that's triggered by what else is she going to pull? What else is going to go wrong? And that's where I'm like, I've resigned myself to understanding it's all in God's hands. I only can do what I can do. I don't have to react. I can respond with poise and calm and, faith instead of reacting with energy and emotion. And, so I'm going through that mentally and emotionally right now. And when it has run amok, the feelings and the thoughts, it's contributed and directly correlated to physiological pain like he's talking about. So it's funny that that's the conversation and that's what I'm sitting on pins and needles waiting to hear from my son. I've been trying to figure out when we're meeting for 2 days and I get no reply at all, like I'm Phil Collins from Genesis. But again, it's faith. You get it? You like that? Nice. No reply at all. No, but anyway, that's what I'm dealing with. So it's a perfect correlation with what he's talking about. If I let that eat me alive, it'll drive you nuts, And so you just try and maintain this mindset that's like, okay, what am I thankful for? I think at the end of the day, that's what really helps me get back on a good track. If I'm feeling stressed, anxious, worried about her not bringing him or me gotten to jump through some other hurdle, causing stress on him. If I let that go, God, I can be a basket case. And I have been over the years. But I've really learned to just be grateful at those times. And that manifests a different mindset and perspective on me that isn't stress-based, but it's gratitude-based.
So Ian, I've got a question for you that I'd appreciate it if we could take the time to go back to that.
I want to touch on.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I really want to respond to Sean.
Okay. Yeah, go ahead.
Buddy, I really want to respond to you right now. John 8:12 in the New King James, Jesus spoke to them again saying, I'm the light of the world. He who follows me shall not walk in darkness, but have the light of life. And I think it's John 11:10 talks about walking around in darkness and stumbling because we don't have the thoughts and the mind of Christ. And in, I think, is it Matthew or Luke? Jesus heals the blind man, and he did it by spitting in the dirt, and he created mud in his hands with his spit and had the guy close his eyes, and he rubbed it on his eyes. And before he moved his hands, he said, according to your faith, let it be done to you. And if you look at the Passion Translation, it actually says you'll receive what your faith expects.
Giddy up.
And Proverbs says that the power of life and death is in the tongue. Those who love it shall eat its fruit. So whether we are speaking life or whether we're speaking death, it doesn't just start with our words, it starts with our thoughts. Our thoughts have energy, and our self-talk and our mindset is the most important thing, because thoughts, our words come from our thought patterns. And so you're doing everything that you need to do as a dad. And I've got to, as you're talking about your situation, man, I just went and pulled 7 years of court records from my childhood so that my wife and I could go over it, and I could know once and for all that I was not crazy, because I was being told that I remembered a reality from my childhood that was not accurate. So I went and found the docket. I didn't realize it was 7 years of my life that I dealt with that bullshit.
Wow.
You talk about thoughts shaping who you are as a person.
You know it. Yeah.
So just rest.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and again, the primary concern is the impact that it has on my kid. You know, I mean, my little guy, he knew his mom was keeping him before they left for Christmas in 17. And he was anxious. And, Dad, can I stay? I don't want to go to Idaho. He kept asking me. And I'm like, he always did when he had to go visit Mom. I always said, on principle, bud, you got to go down there. You got to visit that family. But he knew something that he later revealed, that he knew Mom was going to keep him. But then for 22 months, he'd brought it up and up and up. He just kept bringing it up. Dad, I want to come home. And she wouldn't let him. So I just always was like, bud, be grateful, be thankful, stay focused on what you can control. Know that I'm right here, almost waiting like a catcher's mitt, you know, for you to fall. And I pray to God that doesn't happen. But just know I'll be here when this all comes out. And don't think for a minute I'm sitting around on my hands. I was going to work trying to find ways to play the systems game and to demonstrate that, look, you guys, I'm going to win this war, man. I'm going to win this war of attrition because of my faith and my belief and my role as my kid's dad. And so seeing the stress that's always caused him has always kind of been the most anxiety. I'm an adult. I can get over it. I've already been through it with my oldest son to some degree. So I've got a certain experiential, you know, deal that I can kind of reflect back on. But again, at the end of the day, knowing that if I don't keep that in check for me, I can't be steady for him. You know, so I've got to keep my shit together. I've got to stay poised. I've got to stay calm. I've got to stay in the right mindset. So even in talking with him, it induces a calm and it helps him cope and deal with stuff. Because, you know, I don't want him to have these types of anxieties and things hanging over him as adults. So we're always communicating. We're always being direct. I'm always asking him, you know, hey, what's on your mind, my boy? How you feeling? What's going on? You know, and then we talk about feelings versus principles. And you got to stick to your guns. Feelings make you want to do these, and that's reaction. But poise, control, faith, that's all going to help you respond better. So that's the life of Juan Schetzel, my Mexican name, my Spanish name. Juan Schetzel. I just flipped the SH and the W, and it sounds quite nice.
Juan Schetzel.
Yeah, that's it.
Sorry, JJ. What was your question, buddy?
Yeah.
I just wanted to, because, you know, ultimately, for me, the big thing is you know, solutions.
Yes.
And I think you were just about to get into solutions and what carbon water has to do with all of this. And before I send us off down a rabbit hole.
we're getting over on time, and I want to be respectful to everybody's time this morning. I appreciate everybody taking the time out of their day.
You know, this is the first day of Vision 2020, brother, and you know, pretty much everybody except for my sweetie has the day off today. And so this is if there's ever a good day to go over the time limit that we normally work with, today's probably that day, because people have a little bit of time today. They're, you know, what else are you going to do? You know, it's a new year, a new decade, maybe a little thought process changing might help. And, you know, I put out a post this morning about, if you want to change the world, the only possible way to do it is to change your world first. And how do you change your world? You change it with your thoughts first. That's the first thing. You got to change what you're thinking up here in the old brain cell. And once you get that changed, then you got a chance. You got a living, fighting, breathing, building chance to make it happen. And so, you know,
awesome.
Take whatever amount of time you want to take today. I'm absolutely loving this, and I don't mind how long it goes. This is just flat out awesome sauce information, kids. So let's utilize it. We got the Voltinator in the house. Let's take advantage of him.
Let me. All right, you guys can see my screen again. So we just talked about what an antioxidant is. All right, so free radical Again, I just love this illustration. This is what it is. This is what we're doing. You got a free radical that has an unpaired electron. The antioxidant is going to donate an electron so that the free radical doesn't take it from the healthy cell. Turmeric contains bioactive compounds with powerful medicinal properties. Curcumin is the main ingredient in turmeric, and it has powerful anti-inflammatory effects and is a very strong antioxidant. And we've got one of the best turmeric products on the market.
The
turmeric product. Yeah.
The best.
Emulsified with 11.5 column water. So most people check their phones every 15 minutes or less, even if they have no alerts or notifications. That's a quote by Larry Rosen, who's a professor of psychology. So understand what is going on when you have the impulse, you have the desire to check your Facebook news feed. Dopamine is an organic chemical that plays an important role in your day-to-day brain functions. And it is directly related to a neurological feedback loop, good behavior loop. So it's a neurotransmitter, which is released by neurons in your brain to send signals to other nerve cells. Our brain has several dopamine pathways, which are responsible for reward motivated behavior. You do something, you get a reward. Most of the rewards, regardless of small or large, increase the level of dopamine in your brain. Many of those addictive drugs that people take do the same by increasing dopamine neuronal activity. So you've got different dopamine pathways in the brain, and they're associated with cognition, memory, attention, learning, behavior, emotions, pleasure and reward-seeking behaviors, addiction. So, while the reward pathways are distinct, right, they become active when someone is anticipating or experiencing rewarding events. In particular, they reinforce the association between particular stimulus or a sequence of behaviors and the feel-good reward that follows. So just because you don't have a like or a heart on that Facebook post doesn't mean that you're not going to still get the same dopamine rush for checking, because you will. So every time a response to a stimulus results in a reward, these associations become stronger through a process called long-term potentiation. Nerves that fire together, wire together. This process strengthens the frequently used connections between brain cells called neurons by increasing the intensity at which they respond to the particular stimuli. We're learning a pattern. Although not as intense as a hit of cocaine, positive social stimuli will similarly result in a release of dopamine enforcing whatever behavior preceded it. These people are smart. The entire world is hooked on Facebook. Cognitive neuroscientists have shown that rewarding social stimuli, laughing faces, positive recognition by our peers, messages from loved ones, activates dopamine pathways. Okay, smartphones have provided us with a virtually unlimited supply of social stimuli, both positive and negative. Every notification, whether it's a text message, a like on Instagram, a Facebook notification, has the potential to be a positive social stimulus and induce dopamine influx. So, social media, we perform the action, we write a post, share, comment on somebody else's post, we wait for a reaction, the like, the thumbs up, the heart, and then when we get it, oh my goodness, thank you so much. And really that's what we're doing. So what can be done? Just remember, eat whole food, mostly plants, not too much. drink your Kangen water, take your turmeric, and limit your time on the dang cell phones. The big point that I wanted to share today, JJ, was that, antioxidants and oxidative stress, that comes down to a physiology looking at oxidative stress as a root component. And so again, we're coming back to that neurologically and saying, what is the overall effect from these electrical impulses and how this is affecting things on the cellular level? And so really my goal today was just to get people to look at the science and the research and get them to question if there's anything that they can do to better protect themselves, their families.
You know what's so awesome about this today, Ian, is that back a month or so ago, back in early November, when I was getting ready to go down to the Red Pill Expo, and I knew that there were going to be several speakers that were going to be talking about the issues related to 5G. I had a conversation with Sam Tran, because he came in for his once a month. He comes on the show once a month, and we always have really super interesting, informative, awesome sauce conversations with Sam. And I was talking to him about the fact that I was going to be leaving to go down to that, and I asked him, what is it that Kangen water does that can help us to protect ourselves from this? Because this is coming whether we like it or not, and there's nothing we can do to stop it at this point, but what can we do to protect ourselves? And he said, simply, it's all about the donation of electrons. And ultimately, that's exactly what this conversation has been about today. This whole, starting with what the problem is, and now what's our solution? And Kangen water is the most powerful electron donor that there is on the planet by like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of thousands of times. And I've been saying ever since I heard about 5G and got the first inkling of the issues, I remember like one of my first comments on something like this was, thank God for Mr. Oshiro and Kangen water.
Yeah.
And I just try to keep helping people to understand how important this is. And it's so cool to have people like you who actually understand what's really going on. In fact, you understand it in a way that is so intriguing. I am just so fascinated, and I'm looking so forward to this year. I believe that my vision, even though I'm Helen and I'm deaf and blind, I believe that in the year 2020, my vision is going to improve drastically. So this has been a fascinating thing today, Ian, and I look forward to a lot more of it as time goes by. And I know we've talked about you coming on the show on a regular basis, and I definitely would love to have you. And I'd love you to just kind of pick and choose whatever it is you think needs to come out this week or this month or whatever. And, we'll roll with it and figure out how it relates to what we're doing and how we can accomplish our goal. Our goal is to change the world, and we're doing it. It's happening.
Heck yeah, man. I've got one other thing that I would like to share with you guys, if you have a second.
Absolutely. We're here to hear what the Voltinator has to say today, baby.
And I am really looking forward to you and I doing this on a regular basis. I think that's going to be a good thing. So we just got to figure out what works best with the schedules, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we talk about cell voltage gate theory, and this is a principle called the protect perform continuum. And so you see that you have negatives and you have positives, and we've been talking about pluses and minus signs all day as far as whether something is oxidative or antioxidant. And so again, cell voltage and the energy that's stored up in the mitochondria of your cells is hugely important. We could take hours, possibly even days, and not even touch on everything that we need to. But what I want you guys to get out of this is the protect, perform continuum. And so again, this goes back to that nervous system balance. And on the left side, you see your sympathetic nervous system activation. And on the right side, you see your parasympathetic nervous system activation. And one thing that I try and explain to people is that strength is not a matter of brute force as much as it is balance and finesse. Strength is a neurological function. So you can have the biggest, buffest guy in the room who has these big muscles, and I can still pull his arm down to his hip because he doesn't know how to fire them properly. Okay? So your protection response, your fight or flight response is going to be your pain, your startle reflex, your tunnel. And then your performance on the other side is going to be your strength and your power, endurance, flexibility. You get that really good peripheral vision. And then clarity of thought and word. And again, that comes back to why I'm always talking about maintaining the mind of Christ in everything that we do. And be careful about your thoughts, because your thoughts become words, and your self-talk is going to influence your life in a way that you can't begin to understand, because it comes back to adaptation to stress. All right. And there's no adaptation without irritation. So if your body is doing what it perceives as normal, there's no reason for it to change anything. The body will get better at whatever it is repeatedly asked to do. It's called the principle of specificity, specific adaptation to imposed demand. In order for a change to take place in the body, you need a stimulus that is powerful enough to produce that change. So what we're supposed to do as human beings, cortisol is a stress hormone. So this is the basics, and I do mean the basics of stress physiology. So you have a stressor, you rise to the challenge, and then when the stressor has left and the challenge is over, you're supposed to be able to come back down to baseline, and you're supposed to be able to come out of that it's called hyperarousal. But then what happens is, if you have that stressor, the body loses its ability to compensate properly because it gets more used to running those neural pathways, then you stay in that stressed state longer than you would. And eventually what I see is that people just ramp up, and then they get stuck here in what we call a sympathetic dominant loop, where they're just constantly in fight or flight, running around and panicking, freaking out. And I mean, it's that age old, who knew Chicken Little was so full of, the sky is falling, the sky is falling.
Yeah.
It's not. An apple just fell on your head. Open your freaking eyes and look at the situation, understand what's going on. It's not a bad day, it's a bad 5 minutes. It was a bad circumstance, it was a bad situation. They said something mean to you and hurt your feelings, right? The internet hurt your feelings. Are you gonna let it become a personality trait? Or are you gonna suck it up and develop some thick skin and realize that you can't let the people around you rob you of your peace? Because as soon as you do that, you are now a victim. Yep. You are a product of your environment rather than making your environment a product of you, and you can't co-create anything from that place because you can't even tap into your higher power.
Too distracted. Yeah, a lot of times you talk to people, they say they had a bad day. They didn't really have a bad day. They had a bad 5-minute window, and that just carried on and manifested throughout the day, and it negatively affected everything else, causing the bad day. It was really self-induced.
You'll have what your faith expects. If you focus on it, you are going to attract it, because that's what you're going to see right here in front of you. If I tell you not to think about the color red, but JJ, if I tell you not to think about that red cap that's sitting on Sean's piano, you're going to stare at that thing further.
Yeah.
Oh, you guys are
Now,
awesome.
where is that?
A neon sign.
See, John's wondering what the heck we're talking about.
It's on your left shoulder, dude.
That there?
Right, sitting right by you. Little bottle cap or something.
Oh, this guy. I'm looking for a cap like a baseball cap. I'm like, what is he talking about? Nice. Yeah, don't stare at that, JJ. It's not there. It's not there. There is no cap. There is no cap.
Oh man, I love that. Isn't that amazing?
That's why, though. It's right in front of our faces all day long, and sugar activates the same loop, the same receptors. People don't realize sugar is a dose-dependent neuroinflammatory hepatotoxin. Hepato means liver. So when we drink a Coke, and we're getting all that sugar. I don't even remember how much sugar is in a 20-ounce Coke now, but it's a lot. Mountain Dew is worse.
55 grams, almost 2 ounces in one 20-ounce bottle.
Of refined sugar and caramel coloring and, oh my gosh. And not only that, but there's no fiber in it. So everything bypasses the duct system. Or everything goes through the duct system and it bypasses your digestion. So every time you drink a Coke, it's like, bam, sugar rush, because your body just goes through and starts churning up to try and get rid of the sugar that you're overloading yourself. And the only way that you can compensate for that is, number one, your pancreas is going to start producing huge amounts of insulin. And then your body is going to take all that sugar that it can't metabolize, because glycolysis, glucose metabolism, is an ineffective form of energy, but it's easy for the body to go to rob sugar for energy. And so it's going to store all that sugar in fat cells because it doesn't want to metabolize it right now. It can use it for energy, but Coke is pretty toxic, and the body recognizes that. And so it stores it in adipose tissue for later use.
Wow. What a great description of Coke. I love it. I haven't been able to drink a Coke in 2.5 years. Ever since I learned just how acidic Coke is, I haven't drank one. And I haven't drank a Sprite or a soda pop or a Gatorade or anything like that for 2.5 years now. But that description right there, Ian, that
We can say acidic and people don't get it. Pop is corrosive to your system. It will corrode your system.
Wow.
Well, kids, you guys understand by now. I'm sure if anybody that watches this, they understand why I love this guy so much and why I feel so blessed that he's willing to take his time to come and visit with us. And I think that the more we can get together, the more lives we're going to change for the better. And it's just fascinating to me, brother. I love what you're doing, man. I love you. I love what you're doing. I can't wait till the day comes that I get to give you a real hug. For now, hootie hoos are going to have to suffice. But yeah, you know, we've been in here for 2 hours now, so we might as well wrap this thing up. And I'd like to just ask you, Ian, to give, you know, here we are, the first day of 2020. And what do you have to leave us with for today until we shall meet again?
You know, I think the most profound thing that we've settled on all day is that it all starts with your thoughts. And so when we talk about, especially Enagic as a business, you know, most people don't realize what my wife Laura and I have gone through with our business over the past few years. It's easy to get discouraged. And I would just encourage everybody, if you really take that scripture, you'll have what your faith expects. You'll receive according to your faith. And so we're supposed to have faith that if we are, and here's where people misinterpret the word and preach one-liners and everything else. So if we have the mind of Christ, and Jesus said, he didn't come to abolish the law, but he came so that everybody could have life. So he reconciled us to God, and he paid atonement for our sins. That's the whole story of Christianity, is Jesus comes as a man and dies on the cross, and when we die, we're going to have new bodies, but he always has his wounds. And so Jesus is always sitting at the right hand of God, and he's making atonement for our sins if you believe in Christianity. And regardless of what religion, denomination, I don't want to exclude anybody, but just understand that there are, regardless of what you believe, there are commonalities that start with faith. And if we're going to define faith, faith is the confidence in things not yet seen. So faith is also the opposite of fear, because fear is believing that it won't happen. You want it really, really bad, and you believe in your heart of hearts that you're not going to get it. And so you become anxious and you become panicked, and then you start to discombobulate your hippocampus, your primal brain. Your body goes into a state of sympathetic dominance, and you lose the ability to have coherent, peaceful thought. And so when we talk about being in Christ, having the mind of Christ, it's nothing new age. Whenever I talk about the magic being inside you, I don't mean that I'm God or you're God. I mean that we were created in his image for a purpose. And that purpose is to be the light of the world and to love others as Christ loved us and gave up his life for us. So we can say, oh yeah, I love you, and you need to learn this, because if you don't do this, you're gonna Number one, I would say that's not set in love, because you're a clanging gong or cymbal, and all they're gonna hear is, you're going to hell. So now you're outside the mind of Christ. Now you're not speaking in love. Now you're communicating something with the best of intentions in a way that's not going to be perceived. So coming into 2020, regardless of what we're saying, regardless of what we're talking about, let's make sure that we're doing it in love with the right intentions. And I believe that if we have a powerful enough thought, it starts with a single thought, but think of everybody as a raindrop, a droplet of Kangen water, right, in this big ocean. And think about when a raindrop falls in water and the ripple effect, right? Similar to throwing a stone in a pond. And if you have a lot of ripples, you're going to create a lot of movement. And I believe that if we have a coherent thought combined with an elevated emotion, and we put actions to that, we can change the world. So
Amen.
let's.
Amen.
Amen, brother.
Be the splash. We got to be the splash. We got to be the
splash.
Yep, be the splash, cause the ripple.
I love it. What a way to start out the new decade, kids. Holy moly. I don't know about you kids, but I loved that today. That was awesome sauce in the first degree. We're here to change the world. Sean, how are we? We are the Kong family, and we're here to change the world. How is it we're doing that again?
1 glass of hydrogen-rich, oxygen-saturated, electricity charging. Conga 9.5 at a time. Thank you kindly.
Amen, my brother. One lightning bolt in a box. One incredible guest. And one amazing family at a time. One awesome, fun show. One enlightening show. One prayer. One bundle of faith at a time.
That's it.
Love you guys.
Love you
Yeah.
too.
So
Hey,
happy
nice
to
to
be here with you in 2020, the year of perfect vision.
We're connecting somewhere along the line, even if it's in Vegas. That's we're connecting this year, Rude.
Hey,
That the surprises are going to be in Vegas. We already got our tickets.
man.
We already have our hotel room booked. We're going to be there. We're going big. We're going big. This is 2020, baby. And I hope to see you guys there. You planning on going, Ian? You coming to Vegas?
We've been talking about it, and I think we're going to make it happen. We've got enough time to put it on the calendar. And if you guys are going to be there, I need to be there.
Yeah, I'll hitchhike down to that joint.
All you got to do is get down here to Salt Lake, brother.
That's it.
And we'll have another ride down to another convention with you. It'll be fun. It was fun last time. It'll be fun this time. So
They
yeah.
do have cheap flights directly from Missoula to Vegas. They're like 50 some one way, but it's not as fun as hitchhiking.
Oh gosh, what a great day. You guys make it a great one. Thank you so much, Ian.
Thank you.
We look forward. I'm looking so forward to getting to meet your better 99%. Where is she? She's sitting right there in the room. Tell that girl to get in the straight air. We need to see that girl. Laura Rude. Look at you. Oh, look at that. So awesome to get to see you live. Oh, you guys are awesome. And yeah, I can't wait till we get a chance to have a big group hug in Las Vegas, and you guys get to meet my better 99%. And, you know, I always say everybody should be lucky enough to meet my wife at least once in their life. And I get a feeling that it's probably about the same with yours, Ian. And yeah, thank you so much for being here. Thanks for all your wisdom and your faith and your knowledge and just everything that you're bringing to the table. You know, we can't help but win with people like you on board. And thank you. I've learned a ton today. This will go a long ways towards not only helping me, but helping a lot of other people. And, you know, that's what we're here to do. So
I'm honored that you guys would want to hear what I have to say. So thanks for meeting with me.
well, like I said before, I'm looking forward to helping promote what you do because I think it's super important. I think there's way better, way better things than slicing and dicing.
Yeah.
Slicing, dicing, poisoning, burning, you know, whatever. I think that we all, you know, what you're doing is it's not by coincidence. I don't believe in coincidence anymore. I believe there's a reason why why you made the post that you made a year and a half ago or whatever it was, a couple of years ago when you made a post, and I was like, wow, I got to get a hold of that guy. And I remember calling you doctor. We got Dr. Ian Rude coming on the show, you know. And he's like, hold on, I'm not a doctor.
But I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night.
Oh, amen, man. I love you guys so much. Make it a great day.
You got
Get
it.
out there, change the world, starting with your own, and do not forget your hugs, kids. These are important, and your hootie-hoos.
Love.
Have a great one, you guys.
All right, boys. One love. Happy New Year, gentlemen.
Yes.
And lady.
Happy New Year.
You got it, honey.
Bye
Rock
for
and
now,
roll.
kids. Until next time.
Giddy up.
Oh, let's see. Let's cancel that. All right, kids. Well, I hope you guys all enjoyed that as much as I did. Marilyn, love you. Love you. I love you too, Stephanie. I'm wishing everybody an incredible year here in 2020. I know that we here at the Kong Family Show and the Kong Family, we're going to be doing everything we can in 2020 to open up people's eyes, to do it with as much love and compassion and faith and strength as we possibly can. I know I've got a lot of work to do on myself and my thoughts, and that little gig right there with Ian today, I think it kind of brings to light why I call him the Boltonator. So tomorrow we've got Sam Tran coming in the house, and going to have another awesome thing that should expand upon this. And we're just going to keep it rolling throughout 2020. Love you guys. Perfect Vision 2020. Hooty hoo! Make it a great one.